I never believed in ghost stories or rumors about cursed items, until one strange day when I stumbled upon an eerie old phone at a peculiar antique market. I had just moved to Texas 3 months ago to start my university life. Being new to the area, I wanted to find something special to decorate my dorm room and make it feel more like home. I was still adjusting to the new environment and felt a bit out of place. So I thought getting some unique decorations might help. One evening in late October, after classes, a couple of friends, Harry and Julian, invited me to explore a local antique market. They heard it was full of strange, vintage items. And since Halloween was just around the corner, they figured it might be fun to check out. We drove to the market on the outskirts of the city. As we approached, the rain started to pour, and a thick fog covered the ground, making everything look gloomy and mysterious. The market itself was small and looked old, with only a few stalls scattered under a worn-out canopy. The entire place seemed almost abandoned, surrounded by bare trees, muddy paths, and dim, flickering lights that cast eerie shadows. The moment we stepped out of the car, I felt a strange chill creeping up my spine. The air was heavy, and everything seemed covered in a thin layer of dust. The few people browsing looked just as strange as the items on display. It was as if everyone around us belonged to another time. Something about the place felt wrong. It was quiet, almost too quiet, like the market was holding its breath.
Why are we even here?
Harry grumbled, shoving his hands into his jacket pockets. He looked uncomfortable, his eyes darting around nervously.
Come on, it's Halloween season.
Julian replied, shrugging.
Maybe we'll find something creepy and fun.
But it's freezing. And look at this place. It's just filled with old junk.
Just give it a chance, I said, even though I also felt uneasy. I didn't want to admit it, but I had a bad feeling in my gut. We walked around the market, our shoes squelching in the mud. Most of the stalls were closed, their wares covered in faded tarps. The open stalls sold an assortment of dusty items, vintage cameras, old clocks, tarnished jewelry, and cracked ceramics. There were even creepy dolls with broken faces and empty eye sockets, which only added to the weird vibe.
What's the point of digging through all this junk?
Harry muttered as he picked up a rusty pocket watch and turned it over in his hand. I don't know, I admitted, glancing around. But maybe we'll find something interesting. Something unique. We kept walking, and that's when I noticed it. A small stall hidden in the farthest corner of the market. It looked like it hadn't had a customer in years. Out of curiosity, I moved closer. The stall was cluttered with random items, faded photographs, worn-out books, and strange trinkets that seemed to have been forgotten by time. But sitting alone on a dusty shelf was what caught my eye, a small, old flip phone. The phone looked completely out of place among the other items. It was the kind of phone people used in the early 2000s, with big number buttons and a tiny screen. In a world of sleek, modern smartphones, this one seemed like an ancient artifact. I reached out and picked it up. The plastic case was yellowed, the buttons worn out. I turned it over in my hand, and for some reason, I felt drawn to it, like the phone was calling to me. It felt almost alive.
What did you find?
Harry asked, peering over my shoulder. I'm not sure. Just an old phone, I said slowly, unable to take my eyes off it.
You're not seriously thinking of buying that, are you?
Yes, I think I will, I replied, surprising myself. I didn't know why, but something inside me insisted that I had to take it.
Who cares? It's just a piece of junk,
Harry muttered, shaking his head, but I ignored him and turned to the shopkeeper. He was an old man, hunched over behind the counter, watching us silently. His face was lined with deep wrinkles, and his eyes were sunken, almost hollow. There was something unsettling about the way he stared at me.
You want this phone?
Yes. How much is it? I asked. The old man leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. He studied me carefully, as if searching for something. Then, slowly, he smiled, twisted, crooked smile that made my skin crawl.
It's yours, but remember, never turn it on at night.
A shiver ran down my spine. What do you mean? I asked, confused by his words.
Just be careful. Once it's yours, it'll never leave you.
Feeling uneasy, I quickly thanked him and left, clutching the phone in my hand. As I rejoined my friends, Harry was still looking at me like I had lost my mind.
Let's just go home. This place is giving me the creeps.
I agreed, and we left the market. But even as we drove back to the campus, I couldn't shake off the feeling that I had made a mistake. Back in my dorm room, I placed the phone on my desk and stared at it. Why had I even taken it? It was just an old, useless piece of technology. But no matter how hard I tried to forget about it, I felt drawn to it. I wanted to know what secrets it held. After dinner, I finally gave in to my curiosity and picked it up. To my surprise, when I pressed the power button, it turned on without any problem. Despite being so old, the screen lit up smoothly. The battery was almost empty, but one thing caught my attention. A message appeared on the screen. "Is anyone there?" My heart skipped a beat. I stared at the screen, confused. Who had sent that? I opened the message and saw that it was from an unknown number, sent many years ago. I felt a strange unease, but I shrugged it off. It was probably just an old text left by the previous owner. I almost deleted it, but decided to leave it. I turned off the phone and put it back on my desk. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the phone. It made no sense, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that someone knows something was watching me from the dark. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt like there were eyes staring at me. Around midnight, I heard a faint clicking sound. My eyes flew open, and I sat up in bed, staring at the desk. The phone screen was glowing softly in the dark. My heart raced. "No way," I whispered. I knew I had turned it off. I slowly got out of bed and walked over to the desk. I picked up the phone with trembling hands and saw a new message. "Don't leave me." I dropped the phone in shock and stumbled back. How was this possible? Who had sent the message? I didn't want to think about it anymore. I shoved the phone into my drawer, locked it, and tried to forget about it. But the next night, as I was getting ready to sleep, I heard it again. That same clicking sound. I looked over and saw a faint glow coming from the drawer. I opened it slowly, my hands shaking, and saw the phone was on. Another new message appeared. "Did you forget about me?" A chill ran down my spine. I took the battery out and placed everything on the desk, hoping that would stop it. But no matter what I did, every night, the phone would turn back on by itself and show me strange messages. "I'm so lonely. Why are you ignoring me?" And then the nightmares began. It started slowly, small, unsettling dreams that would leave me feeling disturbed and uneasy when I woke up. In the first few nights, I'd find myself wandering in dark hallways, endless corridors that stretched on forever. There would be no sound except for the soft, eerie clicking noise echoing from somewhere deep within the shadows. I would walk and walk, but the hallway would never end. And at the very end, there would always be a faint, glowing light, the screen of the phone floating in the darkness. Each night, the dreams became more vivid, more intense. I would find myself standing in a large, empty room. The walls were bare, the floor cold and made of rough stone. The only source of light came from the phone in my hand, its screen casting a pale glow. I couldn't move, I couldn't speak. All I could do was stare at the screen as messages appeared one by one. We belong together. Don't you want to be my friend? You'll never leave me. I would wake up drenched in sweat, gasping for air. No matter what I did, the dreams would return, pulling me deeper and deeper into the darkness. My body felt heavy during the day, as if some invisible weight was pressing down on me. My grades started to drop because I couldn't concentrate. I stopped going out with friends. Harry and Julian tried to check in on me, but I kept pushing them away.
Man, you look terrible.
Harry said one afternoon. We were sitting in my room, but I could barely keep my eyes open. Every night was a battle, and I hadn't had a proper night's sleep in weeks. I'm fine, I muttered, staring at the phone on my desk. I hadn't touched it since the second night, but it was always there, waiting. Even with the battery removed, it would somehow turn on by itself every evening, its soft glow taunting me.
Seriously, what's going on? You've been acting weird ever since you got that stupid phone.
I hesitated. I wanted to tell them. I wanted to throw the phone away, to destroy it, to smash it into a million pieces and be free. But every time I tried, something stopped me. It was like a voice whispering in my head, warning me not to. I shook my head. I just need some rest, I said softly. I'll be okay. But I wasn't okay. That night, the dreams took a darker turn. I was standing in the same dark room, the cold floor pressing against my bare feet. But this time, I wasn't alone. I could feel the presence of something else. It was there, lurking in the shadows, watching me. My hand trembled as I held the phone. The screen flickered, and a new message appeared. Turn around. I didn't want to. Every instinct screamed at me to stay still, to keep looking at the phone. But my body moved on its own. Slowly, I turned around, and there, standing just a few feet away, was a figure. It was tall and thin, its form shrouded in darkness. I couldn't see its face, but I could feel its gaze cold, unblinking eyes boring me. My heart pounded as the figure took a step closer.
Why are you ignoring me?
The voice was soft, almost gentle, but it echoed in my head like a thunderclap. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The figure took another step, and another. I stumbled back, the phone slipping from my hand and clattering to the ground.
Don't leave me.
It reached out a long, pale hand, fingers stretching toward me. I turned and ran, the darkness closing in around me. But no matter how fast I ran, I couldn't escape. The figure's voice followed me, growing louder and louder.
We belong together. Forever.
And then, just as the figure's hand brushed against my shoulder, I woke up. I shot up in bed, gasping for breath, my heart racing. The room was dark and silent, but I could feel the cold sweat on my skin. Slowly, I looked over at the desk. The phone was glowing again. With shaking hands, I picked it up. A new message was waiting. You can't run from me. My hands trembled, and I dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor, the screen flickering. I stared at it, my mind racing. This had to stop. I couldn't live like this anymore. I grabbed my phone, my real phone, and called Harry.
Dude, it's 3 in the morning.
Please, I need help. I need to get rid of it.
Get rid of what?
The phone. That cursed phone. I have to destroy it.
Okay. Just calm down. I'll come over in the morning, okay? We'll figure this out.
True to his word, Harry showed up the next morning, looking groggy but concerned. I hadn't slept at all. I'd spent the entire night staring at the phone, afraid to look away.
Okay, show me.
I handed him the phone. He looked it over, frowning.
It's just an old phone. Man, are you sure?
It's not just a phone, I snapped. It's something else. It's alive.
Okay, let's smash it then.
He grabbed a hammer from his car and brought it down hard on the phone. The screen shattered and the case cracked. I let out a sigh of relief. But then, something strange happened. The pieces of the phone started to twitch. Slowly, they slid across the ground, pulling back together. Within seconds, the phone was whole again, the screen glowing softly. No, no, no.
What the hell?
I told you, it won't let me go. A new message appeared on the screen. You can't destroy me. I turned and ran out of the dorm, Harry calling after me. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to get away. I drove for hours, heading out of town and into the countryside. Finally, I stopped at a small river deep in the woods. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the water. I grabbed the phone and walked to the edge of the river. This ends now, I whispered. I took the phone apart, ripping out the battery, the SIM card, every piece I could find. I threw each piece into the river, watching them sink one by one. The water swallowed them up, and I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in weeks, I felt free. But when I turned back to the car, I froze. The phone was lying on the hood, whole and intact, its screen glowing softly. My hand shook as I picked it up. A new message appeared. You can't leave me. Forever. I dropped the phone and stumbled back. My vision blurred, and the world spun around me. I could hear a faint whisper in the wind, calling my name. That night, I woke up in a place I didn't recognize. I was standing in a cold, dark room. The air was thick and heavy, and the walls were covered in strange symbols. My hands were holding the phone tightly, and the screen was glowing with a soft, eerie light. Where am I?
We're together now.
I turned slowly. The figure was there, standing in the shadows. Its eyes glowed in the dark, and its smile stretched wide across its face. No, no, please.
You belong to me. You'll never leave.
The room began to spin, the walls closing in around me. I could feel the darkness pulling me down, wrapping around me like a vice. And then, just as I felt myself slipping away, the phone's screen flickered. A new message appeared. Forever. After the horrifying visions and being trapped in the dark room with the ominous figure, I realized something. I wasn't going to let it take control of my life anymore. It might be powerful, it might have its twisted influence on me, but I still had one thing, my own willpower. I looked down at the glowing phone in my hand. It seemed to pulse with a dark energy, almost as if it was feeding off my fear. But then I noticed something else. A tiny crack in the screen. A small flaw I hadn't seen before. A plan started forming in my mind. If the phone could be broken, even if just a little, maybe I could destroy it once and for all. Gathering all my courage, I tightened my grip around the phone. I remembered what the shopkeeper had said. Never turn it on at night. But maybe, just maybe, I could use that to my advantage. I pressed the power button hard, and suddenly, the glow from the phone intensified, flooding the entire room with blinding light. The figure shrieked, stumbling back as if the light was burning it. The shadows around me flickered and wavered. I felt the phone tremble in my hand, as if it was trying to escape my grip. But I held on tight and pushed even harder. Then there was silence. The darkness lifted, and I found myself standing in my dorm room. Everything looked normal. The desk, the books, even the curtains swaying softly in the breeze. I blinked, feeling dazed. and looked down at the phone. It was completely destroyed. The screen was shattered, and the battery was leaking. For the first time in weeks, I felt free. Truly free. I picked up the pieces carefully and walked out of my dorm room. The sun was just starting to rise, casting a soft, golden light over the campus. I headed straight to the local scrapyard and tossed the remains of the phone into the crusher. I watched as the machine ground it down into nothing but dust and metal fragments. "Goodbye," I whispered. For the first time, I felt like I could breathe. The nightmares didn't come back. The whispers stopped, and my life slowly returned to normal. It's been a year since that terrifying experience. I graduated from university, got a good job, and moved into a new apartment. Things have been peaceful, and I've even started dating again. No more mysterious messages, no more haunted dreams. I finally feel like myself again. Sometimes, I still think about that phone and the creature that was trapped inside it. What was it? A ghost? A demon? I'll probably never know. But I do know one thing. I survived. I didn't let it take me, and I didn't become a victim. And so, my life continued, brighter and happier, free from the shadows that once haunted me. I had just graduated from high school, and I decided to attend a small community college near my home in Los Angeles. Unlike many of my friends who chose to leave their families to explore independence and excitement, I decided to stay because I didn't want to be far from my loved ones, and also wanted to save money. However, this made my life monotonous and lonely. While my friends were enjoying parties and the vibrant student life at bigger universities like UCLA or USC, I was just commuting back and forth between school and home. Making new friends was extremely difficult. Since there were no dormitories or major social events, students mostly came to class and left immediately. There were almost no opportunities for socializing and making new friends. I tried joining a few clubs and extracurricular events, but nothing went anywhere. The feeling of loneliness kept haunting me. So, I turned to platforms like Facebook to try to find new relationships. One evening, while scrolling through Facebook at home, I received a friend request from a guy named Ryan. His profile picture showed a handsome man with wavy brown hair and bright eyes. He smiled confidently, standing next to a mountain bike with a charming and attractive demeanor. Feeling curious, I decided to click on his profile to check it out. Ryan's profile had a few photos of him going for a walk, hiking, and even a picture with a dog. However, I couldn't find much information about his family or friends. This made me a little hesitant, but I wasn't too suspicious, because I thought maybe he just didn't like sharing too much on social media. Not long after accepting his friend request, Ryan started texting me through Facebook Messenger. His first message was simple but friendly. "Hey Mia, I saw you in our school student group. Can I get to know you?" I was a bit surprised since he seemed like a complete stranger. However, he seemed polite, so I responded courteously. That's how we started talking. Ryan said he had just moved to Los Angeles a few months ago and was currently working in graphic design. We chatted about our shared interests, from hiking, exploring quiet cafes around the city, to the best climbing spots in Los Angeles. He always seemed very interested and enthusiastic when asking about my life, studies, and even personal relationships. This made me feel comfortable and a bit excited every time I talked to him. After a few weeks of texting back and forth on Messenger, Ryan suggested meeting up. At first, I was a little nervous since we had only talked online. But then he suggested, "We can meet in a public place. How about going for a walk in Griffith Park? It's my favorite spot whenever I want to relax." Hearing that, I felt more secure since it was a crowded and familiar place. I decided to agree to meet him at the park at 6 p.m. the next day. The next day, I prepared carefully, even put on some light makeup and wore my favorite coat. When I arrived at Griffith Park, I tried looking around for someone who looked like Ryan in his profile pictures. But after walking around for a while and not seeing him, I decided to text and ask where he was. My message was read, but there was no immediate response. A few minutes later, I received a message from a completely unfamiliar Facebook account named Jake. The message read, "Are you Mia? Don't meet up with Ryan. You'll regret it." I froze. Why would a stranger know me and know that I was about to meet Ryan? I quickly texted Ryan directly and asked bluntly, "What's going on? Why is someone else messaging me threateningly?" My message was read, but there was no reply. Shortly after, I received a series of messages from other accounts with strange usernames like Tommy and Chris Williams. They all said I would be in trouble if I didn't listen, and some even threatened, "You'll pay for contacting Ryan." Feeling scared, I left the park immediately. On my way home, I quickly deleted all the messages I had sent to Ryan, especially the ones that contained information about my address. I tried to stay calm and checked every window and door in my small apartment, making sure everything was locked tight. After that, I decided to cut off all contact with Ryan and block every account I had interacted with. But the worst wasn't over. When I finally made it home and tried to relax, I received one last message from Ryan. "I see you. Don't try to run." At that moment, I felt like my blood froze. Someone was watching me from a distance and even knew where I lived. I was trembling as I stepped out onto my balcony and looked around, but I couldn't see anyone suspicious. Despite that, I still felt like a pair of eyes were on me from somewhere very close. In panic, I decided to leave my house immediately and ran straight to my neighbor's house for help. I told them everything and asked them to call the police. When the police from the LAPD station arrived, they checked every corner of the house but didn't find anyone. All the windows and doors were locked, with no signs of forced entry. However, what made me shiver was when the police told me they found an old phone and a roll of rope thrown in the trash bin near my house. Someone had been watching me from very close, and this made me feel completely unsafe. After that night, I decided to temporarily move in with a friend in West Portland for a short time. I changed my phone number and reported all suspicious accounts on Facebook. A week later, Ryan's account suddenly disappeared. No one knew whether the person behind it had deleted the account or if it was taken down. I tried contacting the police again, but they found no further evidence. Looking back, I still don't know if that person really broke into my house or was just trying to scare me. But it was clear that someone had been watching and had bad intentions toward me. This story is a reminder to myself and anyone else that not everyone you meet online can be trusted. If I hadn't been cautious and decided to flee that night, I might not have the chance to tell this story today. That year, I was 16 years old and a sophomore at a high school in the suburbs of Seattle. I had a small group of close friends that I had known since freshman year. Sam and Ben. We always sat together during lunch and participated in sports activities after school. But this year, our schedules changed, and only Sam and I were in the same math class, while Ben was in another. It made me quite sad, because it meant our group wasn't complete during those boring math periods anymore. Everything went along smoothly until one day. That morning, our teacher, Ms. Jane, introduced a new student who had returned after a year of medical leave. She asked him to introduce himself. "I'm Matt. Nice to meet you all." He was tall, with messy black hair and dull, lifeless eyes. There was nothing remarkable about him. but there was an odd aura surrounding him that I couldn't quite describe. He seemed completely disconnected from everything around him. I thought it was just because he was shy, being in a completely new class. Matt walked to the back of the classroom and sat at the only empty desk, right next to mine. When he turned and nodded at me, I responded with a slight smile, trying not to appear rude, even though I was usually friendly and willing to help new students. There was something about his smile that sent chills down my spine. It wasn't the smile itself, but rather the way his eyes remained unchanged, empty and soulless. From that day onward, I started noticing that Matt was always around me. He sat next to me in other classes, followed me from room to room, and even appeared in the cafeteria, sitting opposite me and Sam without being invited. At first, I thought he just wanted to make friends. But as time went on, I began to feel uncomfortable. He never spoke much, just sat silently, watching me with that strange gaze whenever I talked to Sam. One day after school, it was getting late because I stayed behind for basketball practice. I decided to take a shortcut through the woods to get home faster before my mom got worried. I had taken this path many times and usually never ran into anyone. But this time, as I entered the woods, I had the unnerving sensation that someone was watching me. I tried to walk faster, but the anxiety continued to build. When I finally turned around, I saw a figure standing among the thick trees, just about 20 meters away. It was Matt. He didn't move, just stood there, staring at me without saying a word. I froze for a few seconds, trying to see clearly in the dim evening light. "Matt, does your house happen to be nearby?" I called out. No response. Feeling uneasy, I turned back and began walking faster. My neck hairs stood on end as I heard the sound of dry leaves rustling behind me. I knew he was following me. I kept my composure and ran as fast as I could out of the woods. When I got home, I rushed inside, locked the door, and looked out through the living room window. There was no one there. Maybe it was just my imagination, I told myself. But then I saw something that made my blood run cold. On the tree right in front of the house, there was a dark figure crouching. Matt, he was perched there, grinning down at me through the glass, like a predator patiently waiting for its prey. I don't remember how I scrambled upstairs and hid under my blanket. That night, I lay awake, tossing and turning, trying not to think about his creepy smile and the way he had appeared so unexpectedly. Was it a hallucination? Or had he really followed me all the way home? The days that followed only became stranger. One night, I was sitting in my room, browsing Facebook to kill time, when I received a message from an unknown account. "Do you think you can hide from me?" I froze, unable to believe what I was seeing. Was someone playing a prank on me? I didn't recognize the account. I clicked on the profile, but it was just a blank page with no profile picture, no information. Only the name John. I brushed it off, thinking it was some random crazy person trying to mess with me. But the next message arrived almost immediately. "You took the forest trail today, didn't you? Were you running away because you were scared of me?" I felt a chill run down my spine. There was no doubt now. It was Matt. But how did he know my Facebook account? I hadn't friended him. I hadn't talked to him in class. And I never mentioned him online. I tried to ignore it, but the messages kept coming every night. "You will never escape from me. I know what you're thinking. Open your window." At this point, I couldn't bear it any longer. I reported the account to Facebook and blocked it. But that night, as soon as I lay down to sleep, I heard a faint knocking sound at my window. I shot up, drenched in sweat. The knocking was soft, rhythmic, and kept repeating. Slowly, I walked over to the window and pulled back the curtain. I almost screamed. when I saw Matt standing there, separated from me by just a thin pane of glass. He was smiling, his eyes wide with a strange gleam in the darkness.
Let me in, friend.
He whispered. I immediately backed away, grabbed my phone, and called 911. By the time the police arrived, they searched the entire area, but found no one. Matt had disappeared without leaving a trace. I thought it was over then. But no, he continued to haunt me. For the next few weeks, I constantly felt someone watching me, even when I was inside the house. One night, when I was trying to sleep, I heard a creaking noise coming from under my bed. My heart pounded as I bent down and gently lifted the bedspread. In the dim light, I saw two glowing eyes staring back at me from under the bed.
Hello there, friend. I just want to be close to you.
I screamed and leaped off the bed. I grabbed my baseball bat and swung wildly in the space under the bed. Matt crawled out, laughing maniacally, and bolted out of the room. I chased him for a short distance, but then he seemed to vanish into thin air. At that point, I didn't know if what I was experiencing was real or just a product of my imagination. The next day at school, I didn't see Matt anywhere. After some digging, I was shocked to learn that he had actually been a former student at my school. He graduated last year and was loved by everyone for his excellent performance. But he passed last year's in a car accident caused by a notorious school bully who is now serving time in prison for his actions. Maybe Matt just wanted to return and seek justice, but haunting people like this was anything but friendly. That experience was utterly horrifying, as I had faced a lingering spirit. The next day, I visited his grave and brought a bouquet of flowers, hoping that Matt could finally rest in peace and stop bothering others. Since then, my life has gradually returned to normal, and I haven't heard any news about Matt ever again.